Hello. I had an interesting experience today. I went and finally got some blood work done like a week or two ago. And since I was off work today at the post office, I set up an appointment to go in and have the doctor, go over my labs with me and everything. Really, I'd already seen the results of everything, all the numbers on my Advent Health patient portal. And there was a doctor who, provided a brief comment online about the results. Main thing I needed to go back for an appointment for was to get a refill for my blood pressure medicine. And I hadn't actually been in person anywhere for a long time, so they wanted to see me before they gave me the refill on that. But it was interesting. I went in, and this doctor came in at the Advent Health at the hospital here in Altamont Springs, Florida. And he's kind of a fill-in, I guess. He's a really nice guy. I really liked him, But he came in and he opened up my folder and pulled out a couple pages, had the results of my blood work on them. And he started going over them. And like I say, they had sent me messages as all the results came through anyways, and I went online and looked at it, and so I had a pretty good grasp of what the numbers were that from my testing. And the only thing really was there that wasn't normal was like my A1C level was just a tiny bit high, out of the kind of like right into the bottom of like the pre-diabetic or whatever range. And other than that, everything was good. And so I made a comment to him. I said, "Yeah, I know my A1C is a little bit high, And he looked at it. He's like, "No, it's good." And I looked at the number he had was different than what I remembered. And there were a couple other things that I thought, this seems like strange. Does he have different numbers than I do? But he sits there and goes through everything with me, and it was educational and beneficial, just in terms of talking about different things and what the ranges should be and some different stuff like that. And even with the A1C, he said, he doesn't know why people even put that on there unless you're dealing with somebody that's diabetic, just to try and sell people, drugs or whatever, It's not that much of an indicator with some of that stuff over a period of 3 months or whatever. It's not that hard to get a little bit elevated number from something you've done. Excuse me, let me have a little drink of tea here. I took my wife some Panda Express for lunch, and they had this new hot orange chicken. My lips are a little tingly still. But he started talking about some of the results and wanted to know if I'd had issues like thyroid or kidney stuff or whatever. But the one number was just kind of borderline low with something. And I was like, no. And then it had the vitamin D, which I didn't see on my results. But it had the vitamin D number, which was just borderline kind of low. And I thought that's kind of funny because I told him, I take vitamin D supplements. I try not to go crazy with it in terms of the amount, just because I know I've read that you can go overboard. And plus, I'm out walking around the sun all the time. But he looked at some of the numbers and he was like, might be a little bit dehydrated. He said, it looked like on the day I went in to get the blood work done, I wasn't dehydrated. But it looked like, from some of the numbers, maybe I was letting myself get a little bit dehydrated, which I thought, that's possible, because I'm out there in this 95-degree heat. I mean, I'm pretty well acclimated to it and everything, but I drink enough that I don't feel thirsty and stuff like that. I don't go overboard like some people just tell you to drink, force yourself to drink more than you really should. Human beings survived for a long time just drinking when they were thirsty and not following all these modern, drink producers' recommendations to drink more and more shit all the time, even when they're not thirsty. But so then I told him too, since I've been trying to get back into working out some and get going with some, weights and things again, that I've been taking a little bit, like protein supplements, some like high quality, like whey protein, maybe a little creatine. And so he was saying, especially if you're taking protein supplements, you need to be drinking at least 3 quarts or liters of water a day. And then he figured for every half hour I'm out in the heat, I could add another whatever. And so he figures, I should be trying to make sure I drink at least 5 quarts of water a day. He said, make sure you have your gallon of water, make sure you drink that every day, plus a little more. And I thought, yeah, okay, I drink a lot of stuff, a lot of water and everything. So I don't think I'm getting too far behind on stuff like that. And like I say, I've been doing this, working out in the heat for a long, long time, decades, and temperatures even hotter than this, and I'm pretty good at knowing how much I need to have to keep from getting into issues. I'm not one of those people who just thinks I have to drink all the time, so I'm constantly still having to go to the bathroom every couple of hours in the middle of summer, But then afterwards, though, I started looking at that. I thought, these numbers, it's not what I remember. And he gave me the paperwork. He just, wrote some notes on it as we went over it, those papers that he had pulled out of his folder there. And I started looking at it, and the name on top of the form and everything, not me, And it said, the date, testing date was like 7/29, which was yesterday. And the date that they printed it was 7/30. And then, I was looking at that. I thought that was strange. And then I looked at the top and see this other person's name, different birthday and all of that. And I'm like, oh, wow. So that explains why the numbers he was pulling out, I just thought, okay, well, maybe the numbers I saw weren't some final thing or something or whatever. Thought that was kind of odd. But he went over some totally different person's labs with me. Like I say, I already knew what the results were and all of that anyways. And same thing they always tell you, follow like a lower carb, lower fat diet or whatever. And the main thing I went there for anyways was just to get my prescription refilled. And so who knows, he made an appointment for me to come back in 6 months, get some more blood work done. I suppose maybe then I'll tell the doctor I was supposed to see just left last week for maternity leave. And this guy, I guess, is kind of filling in there. And so my appointment next time I go is with this other person anyways. I'll just have to tell her, apparently this guy thought I had maybe some thyroid or issue or something, or kidney issue or whatever, because a couple of those numbers were borderline. And interesting. Not what you expect when you go to the doctor. And I wasn't really looking over all his paperwork. I assumed when he pulled the shit out of my file, he's got my results, And I kind of questioned the one thing he told me. I was like, okay, well, what he's got here is probably it. But I thought that some of the numbers were different, like my HDL and LDL numbers, from what I remembered when I looked at it, weren't the same. But yeah, so I guess that's a good lesson. Don't make any crazy life-altering decisions based on what somebody tells you about your blood work, unless they're actually talking about your blood work and not somebody else's. And I guess the other thing I wanted to talk to him about is just I have some issues with like my one hand, especially like the middle finger, and some injuries through the years, and a lot of like repetitive work, repetitive motion stuff with that. Get a little pain sometimes. I try not to take pills, just because I do worry about my liver and stuff like that, and he said, no, you can go ahead and take like some Aleve for that. And then he was telling me to take it with some antacid. I don't know if he was telling me that because of, that's the only thing that bothers me, was he telling me to take the antacid with my Aleve just because he thought there's something else wrong, that my urine or something was more acidic or something than maybe what it should be anyways or something. Or maybe, the acid was, I don't know. So that's the only thing I think, man, do I really need that? But that makes you wonder then, I hope he wasn't making that recommendation for the antacid with if you're doing like a daily regimen of that Aleve. I don't plan on taking it every single day anyways, you know, but probably take it for a little bit, see if my hand starts feeling better. Anyways, my interesting adventure as a doctor today. I wish I would have noticed that or thought to say something. Are you sure you have the right person's work? But, you know, you don't go there expecting. I guess the person that pulled it and printed it, I forget what her name was now, it was on the paperwork too. I don't know, maybe she pulled it. I hope hope they didn't pull both of them, and then they give the other guy my results. Because, man, the guy might have some thyroid issues, you know? Crazy stuff.